Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar on inventory management best practices. Today we'll be covering supplier management. Before we get started, I would like to remind you that now would be a good time to shut down any other web browsers you may have running, apps like Slack or Skype, or anything else that might zap some of your internet bandwidth. If you experience any issues during the webinar, try logging out and logging back in. That typically fixes it. Please type any questions that you have during the webinar in the chat box located at the bottom right of your screen, and we'll get to as many as time allows during the webinar. We'll follow up with you on any that we can't get to during the live webinar. Okay, let's get started. I'd like to introduce Shay Meyer, our Inventory Management Specialist. Today, she'll walk you through supplier management best practices and how you can do all of this in ShippingEasy's inventory management platform. As a reminder, this is part of a series, and there will be 3 other webinars covering different topics: the miracle of bundles and kits, low stock alerts, Amazon FBA for inventory. All of these webinars are recorded and will be available to you to watch again on our website. Okay, Shay, take it away.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, as Rob said, today we'll be covering supplier management best practices. Specifically, we'll be going over adding a supplier, editing suppliers, assigning suppliers to SKUs, the 4 ways that you can create a purchase order, and then editing and receiving those purchase orders. So within ShippingEasy, suppliers are used in 3 ways. The first way is to assign, suppliers are assigned to products. They can be used in filters, and they can enable the ability to create purchase orders. So when you're assigning suppliers to products, you will then be able to have more options available to track and manage your stock. As far as filters go, you will be able to filter down your products based on supplier. This will allow you to see exactly what products will come from what suppliers. With filters, you will actually have the ability to combine multiple options. So this means you can filter down to your low stock products plus your individual suppliers. With this option, you can easily click on the checkboxes next to the products that you'd like to create the purchase order for, and then select the Create Purchase Order option at the top of the page. And I'll show you this here in a few minutes. And then you will have the ability to create purchase orders directly in the app. So even without assigning suppliers to items within ShippingEasy, you will need to have suppliers set up in order to create purchase orders. So setting up suppliers early on will save you time down the line when you're wanting to quickly create those purchase orders. So you can set up your suppliers in 2 ways. What we call manually, so one supplier at a time done within the suppliers area of the app, or via a CSV. So you can add multiple suppliers, and this is also done from the suppliers area of the app. So to add suppliers to your
Shay,
account.
I'm actually going to hop in here real quick. It looks like all we're seeing is the main slide. Not seeing any of your other slides coming up.
I'm so sorry about that. Thank you, Rob.
Okay, there we go.
All right, is this better?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Okay, so just to recap, the other slides actually didn't have any screenshots of the app. It was mostly just what we were going to go over today. So I do apologize for that. But this is the first slide that shows where we would go within the app to add a supplier manually. So whenever you are on the suppliers page within ShippingEasy, so you mouse over suppliers or mouse over inventory and then click on suppliers, this is the page that you're taken to. So when we say adding a supplier manually, we're referring to adding in one supplier at a time using the Add Supplier button. So once you click on the Add Supplier button, you'll then be taken to the page where you can actually fill out your supplier details. And when you're filling this out, we actually only require the supplier name. This will not be enough information to create a purchase order with, but it does enable you to create the suppliers and start to associate them with your products, even if you're not interested in creating purchase orders within our system. So you won't be required to use any supplier contact information, any address or reseller information. So we really just wanted to make it easy to be able to compile your suppliers in one location and associate them with your products using ShippingEasy instead of having to have an in-depth supplier information listed right from the get-go. The next way to add suppliers into your account is going to be via CSV. So I'm going to hop back really quick, and if you look right below Add Supplier, there's going to be an Upload Suppliers option. And so this is going to be how you add a CSV into ShippingEasy with your supplier information. So when you're adding in a supplier via CSV, there's going to be a little bit of a difference in what's required. So first, you'll have to have a supplier ID column. This is a required column. However, if you're adding in a supplier for the first time, this section is going to be left blank for that supplier. This is going to be a number that will be populated by ShippingEasy. So if you're updating an existing supplier via CSV, you'll want to make sure that you include this number as it appears on your supplier's details page within ShippingEasy. The next thing that'll be required is the supplier name. And so I've made sure that I put both of these in red in my CSV example. So the supplier name is just going to be how you're able to identify your supplier. And once a supplier exists in ShippingEasy, should you want to edit it, you can still do that via CSV. And this column is going to then become optional since we're going to have the supplier ID column. So in this example, these are all new suppliers. Were they suppliers that already existed in the system, I would just put the ID number underneath the supplier ID column. And again, there's not a lot of information that's required on this CSV upload. So information that is not required but that is optional are the supplier website, email address, phone number, the supplier address, supplier alternate address, payment terms, resale license, tax ID, notes, contact information. So you can set all of these up within your CSV or individually within your suppliers. So this again goes back to allowing customers to list suppliers and assign them to products, even if they're not going to be sending purchase orders through ShippingEasy. We really wanted to make this feature available to a wide range of uses and allow for additional tracking and reporting. So that's why we have all of the different options of what can be included but isn't required. It's because we wanted to make sure that this would satisfy a lot of needs. So next, we come to assigning products. We can do this through the supplier's details page, the product details page, and via CSV. So from the supplier details page, what you would do, instead of adding supplier, once your suppliers are already in, you would want to just click on the supplier name. So that blue link that you see next to the supplier ID, you would just click on that and it would take you directly into the supplier's details page. Down at the bottom of that page, there's going to be a section where you can assign products to be associated with this supplier. So when you're looking at the individual supplier's details, you will have the option to search for and add products to the supplier. This is best utilized when you're just having one or even a couple of products that you wanted to update. From here, you'll be able to see the supplier and the supplier SKU, the unit cost fields, and then you can edit or update those however you need to. From the product details page, so if you go into your list of products and you click on the name of one of your products, you'll be taken to this page. On this page, there's going to be a suppliers tab. And this is going to be how you can access the ability to edit the suppliers. So it looks like this. As you start typing in a supplier name, it's going to automatically populate with the names that match those first couple of letters based on what you already have entered into your supplier section. And as you can see, again, if once your supplier pops up down here in the list, you will have the ability to edit the supplier SKU and the unit cost as well. You will have the ability to add multiple suppliers for each product, just in case you do receive that from multiple suppliers. And then next we have a CSV upload. So you'll be able to associate products with suppliers in mass via CSV. I know I talk about CSVs a lot, but that's just because they're really a great tool for making multiple edits at once or editing multiple items at once. Within the product CSV, you'll be able to update the supplier column. So as long as the supplier is already added into ShippingEasy, you can then just work with the supplier column as you see here. So I have the SKU column, the name column, and the supplier column. And then if there's anything else you wanted to update, you can also include that. For updates via CSV, we will need to have 3 pieces of information listed in the supplier cell. So this will be the supplier name, the supplier SKU, and the unit cost, all separated by colons. So a supplier SKU is generally something that your supplier uses to identify this product when they receive orders for it. This is going to be a required field that you must leave a space for in the cell. So even if you won't be utilizing it, you can still leave a space for it there. So as you can see, if you look about halfway down on my decorative pillows, for the Fill the World with Pillows supplier, I don't have a supplier SKU or a unit cost, so I just put the colons and spaces there. And then for unit cost, same thing. The unit cost is going to be what you're paying per unit on this SKU. This is a number that only you and your supplier will see. It's never shown to your customers, and it's going to be used to calculate what the total cost of this item will be on your purchase order. And we use that unit cost and the quantity that you're ordering for your accounting purposes. So if we look at the bottom of the page, we can see that for the koala plush, we have a supplier and a unit cost. So we just left a space where the supplier SKU was. So the supplier name is always going to be required, but if you don't have a supplier SKU or a unit cost, just leave a space for that, and you'll still be able to upload your suppliers associated with products via CSV. So we use purchase orders in ShippingEasy for a few different reasons. So one is to track incoming stock. You'll be able to track any of the pending stock that is coming your way. This way you can cut down on unnecessary ordering and know exactly when you'll need to make an order for specific SKUs. You can also send out orders to suppliers. So purchase orders are available to be sent to your suppliers. You can print them out via PDF, save the PDF and email to your supplier if needed, or even have ShippingEasy email the supplier directly for you. This also serves to have a cloud-based solution for storing your purchase orders. Even if you're not using ShippingEasy to send your purchase orders to your suppliers, you can create placeholder purchase orders so that you'll be able to see your pending orders, and you can have one place where you can go and look at the history of your product. Creating a purchase order for items in ShippingEasy will be something that you can also see in the history of each individual product. So this will make item tracking a lot easier. And then finally, to automatically have your stock updated. So once a purchase order is accepted, either in total or in part, our system will automatically update your stock levels. What this means is that within 10 minutes of you accepting your purchase order within ShippingEasy, your two-way sync platforms will be able to reflect your new stock levels without you ever having to log in there or to make individual stock updates within ShippingEasy. So now that brings us to purchase orders. So I know we mentioned that for supplier setup, the only thing you need is the supplier name. Well, purchase orders do have a few more requirements. So the first thing is going to be the supplier name, and the next is going to be a supplier address. So This will need to be in the address format in order for our system to accept it. So it'll need to appear as a valid address. And as you may have noticed when we were talking about adding in suppliers, this wasn't a requirement. The reason for this is so that merchants who do not want to actually create purchase orders but still want to manage their suppliers can utilize the features. So next is going to be your shipping address and your billing address. Just like the supplier address, this will need to be in a normal valid address format. However, this is going to automatically populate with your default store address. So if that's where the products are going, it'll already be filled out for you. As a note, if you have your supplier address and contact information associated with your supplier, that is automatically going to populate as well once you select the supplier. And then finally, you'll need to list all of the SKU numbers and the quantities that you would like to purchase. So if you are using this purely as a placeholder, the SKUs don't have to have the same supplier that you would when you're placing an actual purchase order. However, if you are using this to send out to your suppliers, you'll want to make sure that all SKUs will be for the designated supplier that you're sending this to. So within our system, we're not able to add SKUs associated with multiple suppliers to the same purchase order. So we can create purchase orders in 4 different ways in ShippingEasy. From the suppliers page, from the purchase order page, from the products page, and from the product details page. So when you're creating a purchase order from the suppliers page, the first thing you'd want to do is click on the name of the supplier. From there, you can scroll down to the bottom of the page and select an individual product, and then click on the Create option under the purchase order title. You can then fill out the required information. So for this, the SKU number and the supplier will already be filled out for you. So anything else that you need to fill out, you can do so here. You can also add additional SKUs for products if you'd like, and edit the quantities that you would be needing. From there, you'll click on the Create Purchase Order option, and that will be ready to send out to your supplier. From the purchase order page, all you'll need to do is click on the Create Purchase Order button. This is going to be very simple, an easy way to create a purchase order. The only thing to note is that when you click this button, no information will populate itself. So the creation of the purchase order itself will be the same no matter how you access it. It's just the setup for that purchase order that's going to be different. So when using this option, the entire purchase order will be blank. So you'll want to fill out the required information and then any additional information that you would need. From the products page, so your list of products, for any individual product that is not part of a bundle or part of a variant group, you'll be able to click a checkbox next to each product that you want to add to the purchase order. So the products will all need to be assigned to the same supplier. So an easy way to start this off would be to filter down to an individual supplier, such as what you see on the left-hand side. Once you have your product selected, click on the Create Purchase Order option, and the supplier information and SKU information will all be pre-filled for you. From this page, all you'll need to fill out are the quantities for the products and the shipping information. And then finally, we have the product details page. So once you've added in suppliers to your product, you can create a purchase order directly from that product's details. So you'll want to click on the Suppliers tab, and then from here, you can see that suppliers currently associated with your product and click on the Create option. This will look a lot like the purchase order that was created from the suppliers page, in that it'll have the supplier and one SKU's information filled out. And then once you create these, they'll all go into your purchase order list, and that'll look a lot like this. And as you can see, we have several different statuses available for purchase orders, just so that you can easily track where each one's at. So the first one we have is an open purchase order. An open purchase order means that the purchase order has been created, nothing's been received, and it still can be edited. We then have a partial purchase or a partially received purchase order, and that means that you've received some of the items and you're still waiting on the rest. It can also be edited. A complete order or a complete purchase order means that all items have been received, and it'll show up as green. And then we also have a closed purchase order. All items have not been received for this, but you're also no longer expecting any additional items. And so from this page, you'll be able to look at and edit your different purchase orders. So when you want to edit a purchase order, all you need to do is click on the purchase order number and then the Actions button in the top right-hand corner. Once you do that, you'll see the option to Edit PO in the drop-down, and you can make changes. So the only thing that you won't be able to change here is going to be the quantity received. Once you have received any quantity, our system will already have placed that in your stock level. So if for some reason you need to change that, you would want to edit your stock directly. Once you've created a purchase order and it is still open or partial, it's going to show up on your product list. So this is that main inventory list that you see whenever you're looking at your products. We show all of your pending purchase orders under the awaiting column, so you can see exactly what quantity you're waiting on. So anytime you mark a purchase order as received, the quantity in the awaiting column will be moved from awaiting into your stock level. So that brings us to receiving a purchase order. So you can accept a purchase order in two ways, either all or partial. So when completing a purchase order or marking your items as received, you'll just need to click on the Receive All option on the purchase orders page. It's going to mark all of your products as received, and it's going to complete this purchase order, so you won't be able to make any future edits. It's also going to update your stock levels. However, if you want to partially receive a purchase order, then you'll just click on the Receive Partial option just to the right of the green button. And from there, you'll need to edit the quantity that you've received for your product. And then once you've completed that, just click on Receive Items. And our system will automatically make those updates to your stock level and the awaiting column. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Rob.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much for all of that information, Shay. Really appreciate it. If you have any questions for Shay, now would be the time to go ahead and type those in the chat box on the bottom right there. We did have a few that came in before the webinar. We'll go ahead and address those now. So Shay, how do I export a list of my suppliers and the products that they're connected to?
The easiest way to do this is if you click on Download Products from your main product list. So if you mouse over Inventory at the top of the page and then click on Products in the drop-down, directly below the Create Purchase Order button, you'll see an option to download products. This is going to send you an email link to a CSV that we create for you. That's going to have all of your product details as well as your connected suppliers, the supplier SKU, and the unit cost. Now, if you wanted just a list of your suppliers without the attached products, what you can do is just underneath on the suppliers page, you'll have the same option to download suppliers. So you mouse over Inventory, click on Suppliers in the drop-down, and below Add Supplier, you're going to see the option to both upload supplier and download supplier. So you'll just want to download your suppliers there.
Awesome. That's great. So what happens when I have multiple suppliers for a product?
When you have multiple suppliers for a product, you will be able to associate those each with your individual SKUs. Now, that said, you would want to make sure that you're selecting the exact supplier that you do want to fulfill that product at that time when creating your purchase order, just so that our system does not have a default supplier selected for you. So you'll need to just let us know which supplier is fulfilling this order for you. Thank you, Rob.
All right. So do I need to associate suppliers with products in order to create a purchase order?
You do not. So when you create a purchase order directly from the purchase order page, you won't need to have suppliers pre-sorted into your products. Instead, what you can do is select a supplier. So you would have to have a supplier created. And then once that supplier is selected, you will be able to add in individual products to that purchase order directly. You can type out the SKU number or the product name, and our system's going to automatically populate that information for you. And so once you're there, you have your supplier information and you have the SKUs that you'd like to add. All you'll need to do is add in the quantity that you'd like to purchase.
All right, great. And we actually have a question, a great question here from Desiree. Are purchase orders in ShippingEasy customizable?
Thank you for the question, Desiree. So I'm going to go ahead and hop back a few slides and take a look at the purchase orders as they appear in ShippingEasy. So this is what the purchase order is going to look like. All of the information that you see here on this page is going to be customizable. However, we will populate the purchase order number for you, and then we're going to have a format that looks very similar to this as the PDF that we send to your supplier. And so that PDF is going to look like this. And everything as far as the SKU numbers, the supplier details, the contact information, your information, and the quantities, unit costs, suppliers to you, all of that is customizable by you. You can even enter in your shipment terms. The only thing that we're going to pre-populate for you is going to be that purchase order number. Thank you, Desiree.
Very cool. And then one last question that we had that came in early was, can I integrate with QuickBooks to track my purchase orders?
So we're not able to integrate the purchase order system with QuickBooks. If you do send out your send out your purchase orders via QuickBooks, what I would recommend is establishing what I said earlier, those placeholder purchase orders. So you can just set up a placeholder supplier and associate that with all of your products. And then whenever you're waiting on products to come in, but you'd still like to be able to see that in ShippingEasy at a glance without having to navigate over to QuickBooks, just set up the purchase order for all of those products. And they don't even have to be from the same supplier since you're not actually sending this out. And then whenever you receive that, of course, you would mark it as received in QuickBooks, but over in ShippingEasy, you can just click on the Receive Partial or the Receive All option, and our system's going to update that internally, and then we'll be able to push that out to your platforms within 10 minutes.
All right, and it looks like that's just about all the time that we have. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. As a reminder, this webinar was recorded and will be sent to you in an email tomorrow. Shay, if you want to go back to that final slide here, there's actually a website on there. You can sign up for any of our other webinars that we have in this series. There's going to be three more left to go on this, and you'll be able to attend those live and ask questions on those as well. So thank you so much for joining us, and happy shipping.